The night settled over Elm Street like a soft, dark blanket. Houses stood silent, their windows' dark eyes watching the empty sidewalks. Stars blinked weakly in the vast, inky sky, almost lost in the quiet of the suburban expanse. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the old oak trees that lined the road, their branches creating dancing, elongated shadows. Everything was as it should be, a perfect picture of peaceful slumber. Each home was a small haven, tucked away from the worries of the world, or so it seemed on the surface. The streetlights cast pools of orange, a familiar comfort. But tonight, one light was different. It was not the soft orange of the street lamps. Mr. Henderson's garage light blazed with a harsh, industrial yellow. It cut through the darkness with an insistent glare, an unwelcome beacon in the otherwise calm night. The light spilled out from the slightly ajar garage door, painting a stark, pale rectangle onto his driveway and a sliver of the shared lawn. It felt wrong, out of place, like a secret accidentally revealed. No car was parked outside. No sounds of late-night tinkering came from within. Just the light, a silent, unwavering announcement. This light was unusual for Mr. Henderson. He was a man of routine, of quiet habits. His lights were always off by 10. His lawn was always perfectly manicured. His bins were always out on the correct day, facing the correct way. This deviation, this single glaring yellow light, felt like a crack in the neighborhood's carefully constructed facade of normalcy. It was a small thing, perhaps, but small things often whispered of bigger, unseen shifts. It was a note played out of tune in an otherwise harmonious melody. The other houses slept on, unaware or unbothered. Their inhabitants were likely dreaming, safe in their beds, shielded by their routines and their closed curtains. But the yellow light from Mr. Henderson's garage seemed to pulse with a strange energy, a silent question mark hanging in the cool night air. It wasn't just a light, it was a statement, though what it was trying to say remained hidden, shrouded in the oppressive stillness that surrounded it. It was a stage, brightly lit, waiting for an actor who had not yet appeared, or perhaps one who had already played their part. Sarah tossed in her bed, the sheets tangling around her legs like stubborn vines. Sleep was a distant shore she couldn't quite reach. The problem wasn't the usual late-night thoughts or a lingering coffee buzz. It was the light. Mr. Henderson's garage light, a persistent, sickly yellow, sliced through the gap in her curtains. It painted an unwelcome stripe across her bedroom wall, a constant reminder of something amiss next door. She tried pulling the covers over her head, but the light seemed to seep through the fabric, a dull, oppressive glow. She had lived on Elm Street for 10 years. She knew the rhythm of the nights, the distant hum of the main road, the occasional bark of a dog, the soft sigh of the wind. These were familiar sounds, comforting sounds. But tonight, the silence felt different, heavier. The yellow light seemed to absorb all other sensations, leaving only a stark visual hum in her mind. It was a light that didn't illuminate. It intruded. It pushed into her room, into her thoughts, making the familiar space feel alien and unwelcoming. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, trying to conjure darkness, but the yellow imprinted itself on the inside of her eyelids. Every time she blinked, the shape of the light flared. It was more than just annoying. It was unsettling. It felt like being watched not by a person, but by the light itself, cold and indifferent. The quiet of her own home, usually a comfort, now felt fragile, easily broken. The house seemed to be holding its breath, waiting. She strained her ears, listening for any sound from Mr. Henderson's property. But there was only the relentless, silent glare. She thought about getting up, about drawing the curtains tighter, but a strange reluctance held her back. It was just a light, she told herself. Mr. Henderson probably just forgot. But the thought didn't bring comfort. The light felt intentional, a spotlight on something unseen. It was a beacon, but for what? Or for whom? The ordinary, predictable world of her suburban life felt like it was slowly tilting on its axis, and the garage light was the pivot point, glowing with a quiet, unnerving intensity. Her heart beat a little faster. The shadows in Sarah's room began to play tricks on her tired eyes. The stripe of yellow light cast by Mr. Henderson's garage transformed familiar objects into grotesque caricatures. Her dressing gown on the back of the door looked like a hunched figure, its empty sleeves like dangling arms. The pile of books on her nightstand seemed to lean precariously, their titles obscured in the gloom, their stories unreadable and menacing. Even the pattern on her wallpaper seemed to writhe subtly in the shifting interplay of light and dark. The silence was a canvas upon which her growing anxiety painted vivid, unsettling pictures. Then she heard it. A sound from outside, distinct and sharp. A scrape. Like metal dragging against concrete or perhaps wood. It was a furtive sound, trying to be quiet but failing in the deep stillness of the night. Sarah froze, her breath caught in her throat. Her ears strained, desperate to identify it, to place it within the realm of the ordinary. A cat knocking over a bin, a branch falling. But it had a deliberate quality, a rhythm that suggested human agency. The sound came again, closer this time, seemingly from the fence line that separated her yard from Mr. Henderson's. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating quiet. She slowly, carefully, pushed herself up in bed, her eyes fixed on the window. The yellow light outside cast long, distorted shadows from the trees and bushes in her own garden. It was through this eerie, jaundiced landscape that she saw it, a shadow. A tall, elongated shadow moving slowly along the fence. It was a human form, but stretched and warped by the angle of the light, making it appear almost inhuman. The shadow carried something long and thin, held low to the ground. The object the shadow carried was indistinct, but its length was undeniable. A spade? A pole? A piece of wood? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the sight, but fear clouded her logic. The shadow moved with a creeping, deliberate pace, pausing every few steps. It seemed to be searching, or perhaps hiding. The scraping sound had stopped, replaced by an even more unnerving silence, broken only by the thumping of her own pulse in her ears. The air in her room felt thick, heavy, charged with an unspoken dread. The dark figure, still just a shadow, reached the end of the fence nearest her window. It stopped. For a terrifying moment, the elongated head of the shadow seemed to turn, to tilt, as if looking directly at her house, directly at her window. Sarah recoiled, pressing herself back against the headboard, convinced she had been seen. Her breath hitched. She couldn't scream. She couldn't move. The shadow remained motionless for what felt like an eternity, a dark sentinel under the harsh yellow glare of Mr. Henderson's garage light. Then, as slowly as it had appeared, it retreated, melting back into the deeper shadows along the property line. The next morning the sun shone brightly, almost mockingly cheerful. Mr. Henderson's garage light was off. His garage door was closed. He was outside tending to his roses just like any other day. He saw Sarah as she nervously peeked through her kitchen window. He looked up, smiled his usual vague, polite smile, and gave a small wave. There was nothing in his demeanor to suggest anything unusual had occurred. No sign of late-night activities, no explanation for the light, no hint of the creeping shadow. He remained an enigma, his ordinary facade now feeling like a carefully constructed mask. That night, Sarah ensured her curtains were drawn tight, leaving no gap for any intrusive light. She lay in complete darkness, a stark contrast to the night before. But the darkness was not comforting. It was filled with echoes of the yellow light, with the memory of the scraping sound, with the image of the elongated shadow. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside sent a jolt of fear through her. She listened intently, her senses on high alert, waiting for something, though she didn't know what. The silence was a taut string, stretched to its breaking point. Then it came. A single sharp sound, a click. It was soft, almost inaudible, but in the profound silence of her darkened room, it was as loud as a gunshot. It sounded close, perhaps from her own hallway or just outside her door. Or was it from next door again? A final, definitive sound from Mr. Henderson's property? She didn't know. She didn't dare to look. Sarah lay there, frozen, her eyes wide in the oppressive blackness. The click hung in the air, a punctuation mark at the end of a terrifying, unspoken sentence. The true horror, she realized, was just beginning, waiting patiently in the silence that followed.